Imagine you're trying to fly a jumbo jet, but you're in a thick fog and all your instruments are dark. For a long time, that's pretty much how the global economy has approached climate risk. So in this explainer, we're going to look at the instrument panel designed to cut right through that fog. A kind of clarity dashboard that makes climate risk, well, visible. And this quote from Michael Bloomberg, who chairs the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or TCFD, just nails the problem. Without clear, consistent data, investors, and let's be honest, all of us, are basically just flying blind. We're guessing. So how do you actually do that? How do you take something as massive and complex as climate risk and shrink it down into something a business can measure, manage, and then report to the public? That's the big question we're digging into today. To really appreciate just how big a deal this solution is, we first have to wrap our heads around the scale of the problem. For decades, the financial world was operating with a giant, climate-sized blind spot. I mean, think about it. The whole job of a financial market is to price risk. But if a risk isn't being measured, there's no way it can be priced. And that leads to what economists call a misallocation of capital. It means money might be pouring into a company that's building, say, a huge new facility on a coastline that's super vulnerable to rising sea levels, just because that risk isn't showing up on any balance sheet. The true cost just isn't being seen. So in 2017, the TCFD comes along and releases its final report. And this wasn't just another boring paper, okay? It was a framework, a kind of operating system built to bring clarity and consistency to how we talk about climate risk and finance. This whole framework is built on 4 main pillars, everything from governance to risk management. But today, we're going to zero in on the one that actually turns all that abstract risk into concrete numbers, metrics, and targets. This is really the heart of the dashboard. Okay, so if this whole framework is our dashboard, then the metrics and targets part, well, that gives us the actual gauges. These are the readouts that are telling us what's really happening under the hood of a company. Now, what's really key here is that the TCFD recommends companies disclose the exact metrics they're using. This isn't about making some vague promises. It's about showing your work. It's what allows investors and the public to actually compare apples to apples. And it's way broader than you might think. We're not just talking about what comes out of a smokestack. The TCFD guidance pushes companies to look at a whole range of things: how much water they're using, their total energy bill, their impact on land, and even how they manage their waste. Of all the dials on our dashboard, there's one set that gets the most attention, and for a very good reason: greenhouse gas emissions, or GHG. You really have to understand these to get a handle on climate impact, so let's break down how they work. First up, you've got Scope 1. The simplest way to think about this is emissions from stuff the company directly owns or controls. We're talking about the exhaust coming out of their own factory smokestacks or from their own fleet of delivery trucks. It's their direct footprint. Next is Scope 2. Now, these are indirect emissions. The company isn't making them on site, but they are causing them to happen. The classic example is the electricity they buy to power their offices and factories. The emissions happen over at the power plant, but they're a direct result of that company's energy use. And finally, we have Scope 3. This is the big one. It's a total game changer. It covers all the other indirect emissions across a company's entire value chain. We're talking from the carbon footprint of their suppliers to the emissions from customers actually using their products. For many companies, this is where over 90% of their total climate impact is hiding. It's the full, unvarnished picture. So, we have our data. The dials on the dashboard are giving us live readings. But data is only useful if it makes you do something, right? That brings us to the second half of this pillar, targets. This is basically the dashboard's navigation system. And this is the crucial next step. It's not enough to just measure your emissions. A company has to set a public goal to reduce them. This is how measurement actually turns into management. This slide shows the 2 main ways a company can set a target. An absolute target is a hard cap. We will reduce our total emissions by 30%. Simple. An intensity target is all about efficiency. We will reduce our emissions per product we sell. An intensity target lets a company grow while getting cleaner, which is good, but an absolute target is what ultimately matters for the planet's atmosphere. They tell 2 very different stories. Now, to make sure these targets aren't just empty talk, the TCFD says companies need to be super specific. Is your target absolute or based on intensity? What's your starting line, the base year? What's the deadline? And how exactly are you measuring your progress? This level of detail is what makes a target credible. So let's bring this all together. We've gone from a total fog of uncertainty to a dashboard with clear gauges and a navigation system. So what's the ultimate point of all this newfound clarity?
This is it. This is the end game. The whole purpose of the TCFD's recommendations is to embed this data into the day-to-day DNA of business. It's about making climate factors as routine to consider as looking at a profit and loss statement. And that should lead to way smarter, more efficient decisions about where money goes.
It all really comes down to that classic business saying, what gets measured gets managed. You just can't control a risk that you can't see. By creating a standardized way to measure climate risk, the TCFD framework makes it possible, for the first time, really, to actually manage it on a global scale. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. For the first time, we have this clear, widely accepted instrument panel to see the climate-related risks and opportunities that are right in front of us. The fog is lifting. The choice is no longer about if we can see, but where we will all choose to go.